For this lesson, I thought it might be interesting to detect candlestick patterns when the RSI is overbought or oversold. So what you see on your chart right now is a script I've written that is drawing the RSI into its own indicator box here. And whenever the RSI goes oversold and we get a bullish engulfing candle, we get this bright green background drawing onto the chart. And likewise, whenever the RSI goes overbought, the line turns red. And then if we get a bearish engulfing candle, the chart turns red. The background of our chart on that bar turns red in our indicator box. Let's open up a blank script and get started. So here I am with a blank script drawing nothing onto the chart. I've set overlay to false, or at least I haven't overridden it to true so that we are drawing into our own box. Let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do for this particular script is import my Zen library. Now this is completely optional. I'm only doing this to save time. My Zen library contains some candlestick pattern detection code that will just save me time in not having to write that code out in this lesson. If you want to write out your own candlestick detection code, definitely feel free to do that. But for today, I'm going to import my Zen library using the import keyword and control space. I'm just going to click on this and import it as Zen. So now we have the library imported. The next thing to do is get some user input. I'm going to get 4 inputs here. I'm going to get a look back. I'm going to get an RSI length, an RSI overbought, and an RSI oversold level. And then I'm just going to fill these out one by one. So look back is going to be set to input.int. It's an integer, and it's going to have a title of just look back and a default value of 7. And I'll show you what the look back is for later. The next value we are getting is an RSI length. So again, input.int title equals RSI length. And the default value is also going to be 7 for this particular script. The code for today's lesson is based on a strategy that I've traded in the past that is profitable. And so I'm keeping the same parameters that I used for that strategy, which are slightly different to the default inputs. We're dealing with a 7-period RSI instead of a 14-period. And we're dealing with an overbought and oversold level of 80 and 20 instead of 70 and 30. But anyway, let me write this out. I like to use floats for my RSI overbought and oversold level because it gives the user slightly more control over the value. So for this, I'll set it to 80.0. And for my oversold level, I can copy that, rename that 80 and 20. And those are our user inputs that we need for today. And so now if I save my code here and I open up the settings menu, you can see that we can set the RSI overbought and oversold level to anything we want. You can set it to 20.5 if you want to, instead of the usual whole number setting. But for now, we'll leave it as it was. The next thing I need to do is get the RSI value. For that, we use the inbuilt function ta.rsi, and this function takes a source and a length. So I'll pass in our RSI length setting into this function, and now we're getting our RSI value. The next thing we need to do is check if the RSI is overbought or oversold. So for that, I'm creating 2 new variables here called RSI sell and RSI buy. RSI sell is going to be set to, is the RSI greater than RSI overbought, or 80 by default? Is our RSI value greater than 80? If so, RSI sell will be set to true. And for buy, it's the opposite, RSI less than RSI OS. So is the RSI less than 20 by default, our oversold level? Now we can use these 2 variables later in the script to tell the script when to draw signals onto the chart. But before we detect our signals, we need to get our candlestick patterns. So here I'm going to say detect candle patterns. As I said at the start of the lesson, you could write your own code here to detect whatever candlestick pattern you want. I'm going to just stick with bullish and bearish engulfing candles, as that is what the strategy was based on originally. So I'm just going to reference my library, zen.isBullish engulfing candle. And I'm not going to override any of the function parameters for this engulfing candle. Same with bear EC, zen.isBearish engulfing candle. Now we have our bullish and bearish engulfing candles. The next thing to do is detect buy and sell signals. And that's quite simple. All we need to do is check, is the RSI overbought or oversold? And do we have one of our relevant candlestick patterns? So here I can set up two new variables called buy signal and sell signal. And buy signal is going to be set to, do we have a bullish engulfing candle? And then I'll open up some parentheses here. I want to check, is the RSI currently oversold? Or was it oversold on the previous bar? Because quite often, especially in the case of bullish and bearish engulfing candles, sometimes the engulfing candle will close and bring the RSI up out of our oversold level of 20. But the candle before it was below 20. That just scared the hell out of me. I've got my headphones turned up to maximum volume so I can hear that the audio is okay, and that was so loud. What was that? Oh, good, one of my trades is doing well. I'll check on that after this lesson. Let me write out the code for this. So we're detecting our bullish engulfing candle. The next thing to do is check, is the RSI buy variable true? So is this condition true? Or was it true on the previous bar? So was the RSI oversold on the current bar or the previous bar? And we got a bullish engulfing candle currently. Then we have a buy signal. Very simple strategy here, but very powerful, especially when combined with market structure. So if you drop out to a higher time frame and you get one of these signals around a support and resistance zone, it can be a very, very effective counter trend trading strategy. Now, for our sell signal, we do the same thing. Do we have a bearish engulfing candle? And was the RSI sell variable true? So is the RSI overbought? Or was it overbought on the previous bar? Was RSI sell true on the previous bar? If it was true on either of these bars and we have a bearish engulfing candle, we have a sell signal. That's really it. All that's left to do is draw the data to the chart. And I'll also generate an alert when one of these conditions are true. I'll show you guys how to add alert functionality to your signal detection. But for now, I'm just going to copy my plot code because you've already seen me write these plot lines of code out a million times. Hopefully by now you understand how it works. We're just plotting the RSI overbought and oversold level, and changing the background color when we have a signal. So we're plotting the RSI. Let me save this code really quickly so that I can demonstrate this visually. So we are plotting the RSI line here, and let me change it from black to gray so we can see it a little bit easier on this background color. There we go, that's a bit better. So when the RSI buy is true, meaning the RSI is oversold, we change the color of our RSI line to color.lime green, or bright green. Otherwise, if RSI sell is true, meaning the RSI is overbought, then we change the RSI line to red there. Otherwise, if the RSI is neither oversold nor overbought and it's just in the middle of nowhere, then we set the color to gray. And then we set the line width to 2 to thicken it up a little bit. We plot our RSI overbought and oversold levels. In fact, I think a H line will look better here. So let's change these to horizontal lines, H line plots. Save my code. I think this will look a little bit better. Yeah, there we go. I like that better. And then finally, we change the background color of our indicator box based on whether we have a buy signal or a sell signal. So similar to how we change the RSI color based on these two variables or conditions, we do the same thing here. We say, do we have a buy signal? So is the RSI oversold, or was it oversold on the previous bar? And do we have a bullish engulfing candle? If so, we set the background color to green or lime. Otherwise, if we have sell signal is true, so we have a bearish engulfing candle and the RSI was overbought or oversold on the current bar or the previous bar, then we change the background color to red. Otherwise, if neither of these conditions are true, we set the background color to NA, or in other words, we just leave it alone and it gets set back to whatever our default setting is in our trading view settings. And that's it. We have a strategy, essentially, a tool to help us trade a strategy built out in PineScript. Now, the final thing to add more usefulness to this tool is to add alert functionality. So let's do that down the very bottom here. Let's trigger our alerts if any of our conditions are met. To do this, I will use the alert condition function. And here we need to say, for our condition, do we have a buy signal or a sell signal? if we have either a buy signal or a sell signal, then we want to generate an alert to our phone, to our charts, to our email, however you like to set up your alerts. And we need to title this alert. So let's call this just RSI signal. And we also need to give it a message. So for this, I want to say we need to name this setup. So I'm just going to call it RSI exhaustion setup for, and then we can open the two curly brackets and then put ticker in here and then close those two curly brackets off. And now our alert, when it gets fired, this ticker placeholder, that's what this is, the two curly brackets followed by a label in the middle will be replaced by TradingView with the ticker, so the market that we have set the alert on. So in this case, this would say RSI exhaustion setup for euro dollar or EUR, and it would replace the ticker name there. One other thing we could do here is include the RSI value so that we know just how overbought or oversold the RSI was on this particular bar. To do that, we can open up two curly brackets and put in the plot underscore 0 placeholder and then close off those two curly brackets and then close off my parentheses. The parentheses are optional. You could put a dash here as well if you want. Maybe that's a little less confusing, less braces and brackets going on in our code. And now what PineScript will do is it will replace the plot here, plot underscore 0, is the very first plot value in our script. So in this case, that is this plot here, the RSI value. So when this alert fires, this placeholder will be replaced with, for example, on this particular bar here where my mouse is, it would have been replaced with 60.41009. But anyway, that sums up this script. So we have 35 lines of code, most of which is spaces and comments, and we already have a useful, practical trading tool that we can use in our trading. Now, I wouldn't recommend you go out and blindly trade this system. It can be quite effective. As you can see here, it does detect a number of, that would be losing trade, winning trade, losing trade, losing trade. But depending on how you trade this particular strategy, if you combine it with other filters such as market structure, you can get some really nice trading setups out of this kind of tool. Oh, and I nearly forgot to mention, the way you set alerts on this script is you need to come up to the alert button here or press Alt-A on your keyboard and select our script. So RSI oscillator is what I called my script. Click on that and then select the RSI signal in the conditions drop-down box. And then whatever you set up here will dictate how that alert fires. If you set it to once per bar, the alert will fire even before the candle closes. So you might get a lot of false signals firing alerts. That can be useful though if you want to be notified of a potential trading setup before it happens so that you're not in a rush to get your trade sorted once that signal is confirmed. But if you're proficient with your trading process and you can place trades really quickly, then you just set it to once per bar close and you'll be notified as soon as the signal is confirmed and the bar closes as a valid signal. Anyway, that will do it for this lesson. I'll speak with you in the next one. As always, the source code will be below.